and I'm Lawrence Brown from Morgan State University.
Hey Lawrence, it's a pleasure. I'm Lou Evans.
And can I ask you to speak up just a little because there's a lot of traffic?
Okay, yeah. All right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Excuse me, I have my questions on the phone.
Okay.
All right. So if you can answer, what community do you live in?
I live in Butchers Hill.
Butchers Hill? Okay.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about the death of Freddie Gray?
I've been an advocate for young black men for a long time. Freddie Gray's death as an individual event is not as important to me as the daily events that I see in lower income communities. I see Freddie Gray dying every day. I'm happy that young people took this opportunity to speak up, but we have so many things happening every day, every hour of every day in this city that are equivalent or more horrifying than Freddie Gray's death. So I see this. I started my company, a temporary staffing company, specifically to hire minimally educated, low-income people. So I have employees who have just returned from prisons where they were overcharged. I have employees who couldn't work because they're a part of a cycle of uneducation and miseducation and poor health and just, and I'm talking about mental health and economic health as well. And I see Freddie Grays every day. You know, this event, I think, you know, Freddie Gray wasn't the first person to die in police custody. And he wasn't the first person to die under, you know, just horrific conditions. But I think what's happening in Baltimore right now is that this is the first time in my history in Baltimore that I have seen young people who understand that they just simply have no hope. You know, there's no opportunity. And after, you know, what did they have to lose? They didn't, their businesses weren't burned because these businesses don't hire these folks from this neighborhood. Their homes weren't burned because they don't own these homes. So you have people who have no ownership, no real investment, and they understand that people come into this community, strip them of their dignity, their economics, and then leave. So, you know, I actually attended, the reason I'm here is because there's a disaster center for the Small Business Administration and for businesses that were affected. So I'm going to investigate that. But there was a meeting at Morgan State last week. I don't know if you all were there. And the businesses in this community were, the governor's office, the federal government is saying, we will give you a low interest loan, and it's a disaster loan, so you can finance some of this stuff for 30 years. And the requirements for getting a loan are really minimal. But the businesses were saying they wanted the government to give them stuff. They wanted grants, they wanted money, they wanted cash money. And I actually stood up and I said, no, you people have stripped the communities. You have given nothing back. And yet you say you want the government to give you something. And many of these companies, you can see people, you can go to any one of these businesses around there and you'll see black people standing in line, and you won't see any black people standing behind the counters. The businesses in this community have helped create this condition. And one of the, I mean, we as black folks have to change our relationship with business and our relationship with government. We have become the ultimate consumers, and a lot of it has to do with how we feel about ourselves. We purchase things to make us look like other people and pretend to be other people. We refuse to accept who we are and enhance who we are and to complement who we are. And what we have done is we've just become such irrelevant consumers, and it's generational. We just pass it on and we pass it on. And of course the police don't value us. The government doesn't value us. Look at the educational system here. You know, $140 million missing from the school system, most of it coming from the very area. We don't challenge our politicians. When Elijah Cummings says, this has been my community for 30 years, and he's a U.S. congressman, and he has lived in a community for 30 years that is one of the worst economically hit communities in the country, then that tells you a great deal about how effective he is, and it also tells you about the relationship that people in this community have with him.
Let me ask you, where were you on the night of the 27th of April when the unrest took off?
I was at home. I was at home. I watched most of it on television. I had been saying this would happen for years. It's because of the business I'm in, and I move between different stratas of society. I knew this was coming. And it's going to get worse. You know, I believe that when school is out in July, August, this town will burn. We're in the middle of a gang war, and nobody acknowledges that. Because of politics, we can't get our mayor to tell the governor, we need a gang task force in Baltimore. If we don't, you know, you hear about the shootings, you hear about the, you know, people who are shot in their head. This is gang warfare, and it's not about people being robbed or any of that other stuff. It's about territory. So,
but why do you think that it has spiked since the uprising?
Well, it spiked since the uprising. Part of it is because the police aren't doing the work that they were doing before. Now, the work that they were doing before, even though it was effective in managing the murder rate, it wasn't effective in stopping the crime. So basically, it's as if, you know, it's if your house is burning and you say, okay, well, I'm only going to let the first floor burn. I'm always going to manage the fires on the first floor. But eventually, you know, something happens and the entire place burns. And that's what happened in Baltimore. Baltimore has a policing policy that we call containment. And we contain the crime in certain neighborhoods. Now, the thing that fuels this and keeps it going is that the state of Maryland gets a huge pot of money from the federal government to fix the problems in Baltimore. But if you fix the problems in Baltimore, you stop getting the federal money. So what you have to do is you have to contain it and you have to manage it. And that's what we've done. So at one point, containing it meant 300 murders a year. The federal government came in and said, you know, you have to see some change. So we changed our dynamic, and now we manage it to about 200, 250 murders a year. But we're still containing it. We control how many drugs come into the community. We control the arrest. We manage the arrest to deal with the prison population. You know, and it's an amazing thing. But it's this is the game that we play. And a lot of it has to do with our voting. You know, when you have, you know, this is like Ferguson, where you had, you know, a majority of black population, but you have, you know, such a small percentage of black folks voting. And even if we had more people voting, we don't have people voting wisely, you know. So if you vote for the mayor because she's fashionable, or vote for somebody because they're black, even if they don't have your best interest, this is what you get.
Well, I just want to thank you.
Yeah.
I don't want to make sure you have enough battery for other people. But,
listen,
you know,
it was my pleasure.
Thank you.
It was my pleasure. I'm going to go in here and see what they have.